Come, spell weavers, reavers, rogues, and men-at-arms, and answer the call of adventure. Pick up your sword, your axe, your spellbook, your bow, your rulebook, and your dice, and join the forces of good in their eternal fight against vile monsters, conspiring min-maxers, horny bards, and blood-soaked murder hobos. Discover the treasure trove of role-playing games here on Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome back to Rollin' Bones with Ryan Howard, where we are making old school young again. I'm your host and king of the Boneheads, Ryan Howard, and I'm pretty excited about tonight. We have the prolific and great artist James Shields with us on the show. So before we get to that, though, I just want to remind everyone to like, share, and subscribe to the stream. That is how we let people know that Rollin' Bones is out there. For all of you who haven't seen it yet or are seeing it for the first time tonight, welcome. I'm glad that you're here with us. We're going to have a great conversation tonight, as we do every week, every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central. Almost said the old time, but 8 p.m. Central on Tuesday nights right here on YouTube and Twitch. And if you want to see some of my other content, you can find me at the following social medias. I am at Howard_Ryan Gregg on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube at Rollin' Bones and on Twitch at twitch.tv/RollinBonesRyan. Twitter is where I've been doing a lot of my threads recently. And for those of you who are fans of these threads where I'm just going through RPG topics and giving my thoughts and opinions on those, I will be turning those into YouTube videos. So stay tuned for that. I am going to be filming at least the first two here this week, so I'm hoping to have them in the next couple weeks. And before I bring Jay on, one last little piece of housekeeping that I want to show everyone. I am again reminding you all that, let me bring this up correctly, I have a TeePublic store where you can buy all kinds of great Rollin' Bones t-shirts, including the Bonehead t-shirt, the Rollin' Bones logo t-shirt, and the RP Gorillas t-shirt. I am very proud of all of those, and so I hope that you guys will, buy them if you feel so inclined. I think they're cool. I hope you think they're cool. I hope you think that I'm cool too, but, that's beside the point. Whiskey's going straight to my head tonight. Anyways, that's enough of my shilling. Let's get into the most important stuff, and that is tonight's guest. Like I said, he's a very prolific artist. He has a great business of, putting out stock art for people to use just kind of, generally in all of their published work. He is a fantastic artist and a great dude, a great game master. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome for the first time to Rollin' Bones, James Shields.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Thanks for having me on.
It is my pleasure to have you on. Like I was saying beforehand, I have been wanting to bring you on for a while now, at least since 2 years ago in North Texas when I was in one of your Star Wars games.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I know that there's lots of stuff we're going to cover, and I enjoyed being able to reconnect again for that time. It was really cool.
And to answer Lou's query here in chat, not yet. I have been looking into Rollin' Bones Hawaiian shirts. You would not believe how expensive it is to get custom Hawaiian shirts made that don't suck. But maybe someday. And then, obviously, you were just on This Old Dungeon as well. So yes, only the top tier of RPG programming has James Shields. All right, you were just frozen, so none of us heard what you just said. Just
Uh,
oh. All right, it just happened again.
Let me see if running without my camera would help.
Okay. All right. We'll try that. Cool. All right. So, moving beyond my, again, shilling my stuff, we're here to talk mostly about what you have going on here. So, before we get into the game that you have, or the zine rather that you have going on right now, I do want to ask you some of the introductory questions that people get asked when they come on Rolling Bones. So let's begin at the beginning here. James, how did you start? Playing RPGs. How did you get into this hobby in the first place?
Well, my dad, when I was probably 5 or 6, was a game master. And so this was, 84, 85. And he had his own, and, being in that age, I admired all the things you put on the table. And even at that age, I had a desire to play and be a part of the game, but I wasn't very expressive and did not communicate that desire very well. I kind of tried to use a little bit of telepathy to convince him to get me to do the things that I wanted him to do. But so that's when I first got introduced from the peripheral. He still has my hint that I wanted to be a part of things. I made a miniature out of hamster wood, green hamster wood, glued it to a penny to it, and glued a toothpick as its. And he still has that in his house, and so that's used to it. So when I was in high school, I got introduced to some friends who played, and then eventually into a gaming group, and so I jumped on that opportunity. And what's interesting is that they weren't so much of Dungeons and Dragons as they were other old school games, like the classic Marvel Face Rip.
Mhm.
That was the one that was one of two that I enjoyed the most at the time. Um, the other one was Rifts, and because I didn't much about system mechanics and what I was and wasn't supposed to like, so um, but I love the world and to dig through the wonderful art that's in all the Rifts books, and if it wasn't for the works like artists like Ramon Perez, I don't know that I'd be doing this today. And
Mhm.
so he was a major influence in the art style. And so that's how I got into playing roll into the hobby.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a whole generation of gamers who th- I think they were introduced to D&D, but ultimately the thing that really kind of hooked them was Face Rip Marvel, and then Palladium TMNT, I think, is the other game that a lot of people of what I'm guessing is your generation kind of got into to begin with.
Yeah, TMNT was certainly, we were inspired by it, and we even played a few times, but it wasn't one that we really sunk into. As far as role-playing games go, it was absolutely a genre that I was into, um, even though we never played, still Ninja Turtles. So
Mhm. Gotcha. Now, those of us who put a lot of time into creating content for role-playing games, doing art, writing books, trying to, self-publish, doing shows like this, most of the time we're doing this pretty much just because of how much we love the hobby, and that love comes from fond memories. So if you had to pick like a fondest RPG memory, what would that be?
Oh, there's so many aspects to what we bring to this hobby. Certainly there are moments from more later, as I'm been a part of the community. And I guess there is certainly a difference between the fond memories of the community and the fond memories at the table. Let me see if I can't start with fond memories at the table. And I think I would say just the hours that I used to be able to just stay up late and roll. I had a game master that I could show up at his house 10 o'clock at night and would still roll. I could get work, show up. He had an open door policy. It was actually his parents had an open door policy. I could just walk in and we could go and start game. With that gaming group, really allowing me into the hobby. And I don't know that I necessarily identified my place in that, but I think I began to get the um, I think it has to be most recently with North Texas. We lost Doug Ray, the founder of North Texas RPG Con, and I wanted to, everybody was trying to see trying to do what they could to help with the convention and whatnot, and I wanted to get back in a real way, so I volunteered to do the logo for their shirt, and there's some really cool story behind that with both Gary and Mike, and there was some hesitance between the two of them because it was funny because they both really wanted me to. Oh, I'm sorry, actually mixing up two stories in this. They really wanted to be a part of it, and then it was when I did finally create the illustration, and I dug into Doug Gray's life, and I was able to implement a whole lot of things about him into one image to homage him. And I'm wearing the shirt tonight, not on purpose. I mean, I purposely wore the shirt, but not this not for this interview, but it was. And so when I was able to finally share it, and Gary shared it with Mike. Mike was very hesitant about expressing how he felt about it because he really liked it, but knew how emotional Gary was going to be over it, and even to this day, it really impacts Gary a lot because they were really close friends, and so that's probably my memory in the community. That I continue to say that. It's about people, and I don't need to, the, there's lots of things that are important in this world, and it's the people in it and making an impact in people's lives instead of just wasting time. And I hate to say it that way. What people will view just wasting time at the table. It's the people and the shared moments. That's what I would say.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. And as Lou says here in the chat, both of the logos that you've done are awesome.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.
So
I'll keep doing them as long as they keep letting.
So there's, of course, the third question that we will save for the end. But for now, I really want to talk about this project that you have going on right now, Monster and Character Encounters, aka Mace, which is a zine of monsters, traps, and
Yes.
treasure. But in addition, it's also, at least at the $50 tier or higher, a way to get stock art. So let's kind of begin at the beginning here. How did you kind of start with this particular project?
Well, you know, over the last, well, sorry, about a year ago, I decided, I need a job that's going to provide more stability for my family. And so I've started putting feelers out, and really was blessed with the type of job that I landed. And and it was okay work. And I am proud of it. I was, wanted learning how to do layout in design. It's actually funny because I was hired for my knowledge of Photoshop, which I know a lot of, and they misunderstood that as being knowledge of the entire Adobe package and suite. And and so I knew very, very little about InDesign, which is probably the entirety of my not the entirety, but a large portion of my job. And so fortunately, because the two are similar, I was able to adjust the bell curve really quick, and they were none the wiser. And so weeks and almost days, missing being a part of creating for the RPG community, and honestly being able to connect with those in the hobby like this. And so talked with my wife about it, and finally came because it kind of finally came to a head about stepping away from a secure job in something that I love. And so last week was my last day, but I knew ahead of time that, hey, I needed to maybe rolling back into the things that I know, things I'm used to. And but the one thing I didn't want to do stepping back into this was diversify, and not just do straight commission artwork, but to actually begin self-publishing, which I'd want to do for a while, but I felt so trapped in just commissions, and feeling like almost like just trying to tread water and keep flow with it, that I never felt like I could. This time I decided to, and I decided to start with something simple, easy, a zine. And monsters, are one of my favorite things to illustrate, and the creativity that can go into that. So I decided to start there. And there was some point that I realized, this doesn't have to be just a zine. It could also be continue to do what I've been doing and providing stock art for independent publishers. Because when I started about a decade ago into this community, I wanted to be able to give back to independent publishers, as a way to thank them for contributing and trying to kind of bridge between straight stock art and straight commissions, and began creating for independent publishers. And so this is what I'm doing, as much as I can. I'll continue to make products that will benefit the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this project, I've seen a lot of your art before. As we were discussing before we came on the show, you're very prolific, especially within a lot of the circles that I kind of find myself in. But I mean, just kind of looking at what's available as a preview here on Kickstarter, I like this gore ox. That thing is brutal looking. That's awesome.
Thank you. Before we move on, I brought up the stock art, and I did want to clarify something because it did get brought up. Because I have people who've already supported my work, and they get a lot of my art, and some of them will look at the Kickstarter and say, we've already got that artwork. And I want to clarify. No, you don't have all the artwork, because I know the Eye Thief has not been released. But two, I have committed to 40 brand new illustrations that nobody else has had yet as part of this. There's a statement in there that says these are samples, and definitely the Gorox is part of that. And most of them that you see in there are gonna wind up in there. But I do want to clarify that this is a project in which there are going to be brand new monsters that no one has ever seen come to life that you can put in your products. And on top of that, because I don't know if we'll touch on it, but not only is it stock art, but the accompanying text for each monster is available for commercial use, so you can drop it straight into your adventure, straight into your world. The only thing I ask is don't make another bestiary of my monsters and sell it, because that's what my zines are.
Gotcha. So theoretically, if I were to, I'm working on a sewer adventure right now that I'm going to be running at North Texas. If I were to publish it, I could theoretically include the Gorox as a monster that could be encountered during my adventures. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, and not just that. You could take all that as is and just drop it in.
Sweet.
The stats, the descriptions, the attacks, all that.
Mm-hmm. And welcome to Legion of Myth here in chat. Max, I don't know how I could have gotten you in any trouble on Twitter that you haven't already gotten yourself in, so I don't want to hear it. But yeah, I mean, and the tiers here are great. There's lots of different options here. You've got your digital copy tier, you have your digital and physical, and then you get into the licensed tiers, which are all again, like, these are all pretty reasonable. So it's cool to see stuff like this. And for anyone who is thinking about backing this, just so you know, it is fully funded. So if that's a concern for anyone, you have no excuses left. And there's also no prize for backing with like 5 minutes to go. So you guys have 9 days as you're seeing this live right now. So go ahead and back it now if you're going to back it at all. There's no prize for backing it like in the last 5 seconds. Don't give James a heart attack here.
And actually, I would say that the reverse is actually true. It's actually more beneficial to back early on because of the algorithms. Yeah. The more successful ones are going to get more traction, and that means that that it's going to grow and be a better product and allow me to do this more. If you want a second edition, and in case you didn't notice, that's Monster and Character Encounters number 001. And so if you have keen eye for things, I'm hinting at something. So if you want to see more of it, jump in.
Absolutely. Cool. So I mean, this is a good place to transition here and talk a little bit about the stock art itself, because this isn't your first foray into stock art. You've been doing this for quite some time, actually.
Yeah, actually, before we jump into that, I did have more of the actual design process, and so there were some very specific things that I was aiming for with the zine. If you don't mind going back to that layout.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you've already seen with the layout, it is I I'm a minimalist, so it is clean, it is concise. Every entry is a one-page entry. You have everything that you need on there, and each entry comes with, of course, the monster description, their stats, attacks, and so forth. But they also come with their rumors, their traps, and their treasures. And this was designed for old school games, and so you have two columns. What I did there was I looked at the various old school stat blocks. There were some that I dropped that I felt like that these are really the game master could decide at the table or infer from the monster, things like percentage and layer and the monster's intelligence. That can be an at the table thing for brevity. I condensed it to this. And then the rumor, and I'll start kind of at the top, the rumors. And there's one thing, there's one slight adjustment to this that I'm going to do differently. I'm going to mark, highlight, bracket something to indicate sections of each sentence of the rumor that will encourage the game master to decide on the fiction. And so, for instance, that very first one says, I believe that Goroxen, which is the plural of Gorox, is that they are not affected by mental influence. Now, I might put brackets around are not, or around mental, and then as the game master introduces it, the players interact with it. The game master can decide whether or not portions of that are true or how far from the truth those are, because maybe it was the mental that got messed up and they meant to say dental, or whatever it was. You can determine what it is or affected by. And so then there's also there are going to be 3 rumors, so you can have levels of rumors. So if you have someone who succeeds very well at their knowledge check, or just would naturally know more, you can kind of go down the line of what they could know. And so it really allows you to customize the creature at the table, and it's not something that everybody's going to always come in and know how to defeat these things, burn it with fire or whatever. And so I was very purposeful about that. I will stop because I did forget there was one other portion that kind of at the very top that I made a design decision in, and that is every monster, not every monster, but many monsters in old school games, when I look at it in the table of contents, and especially as a young kid, looking at it like, what in the world is this? What is a boule? And so what I've given my monsters is a common name and a scientific name. Scientific as in not really a scientific name, but close enough to give it its own name. And so Gorox is what everybody calls this thing, but you can see that it's a Gorox. I can't really see the screen. Something bovini tentaculus. That's right. And so it's classified name. And to kind of do a real world, not real world, but because D&D, well, we can call it real world. If I've been doing the boule, instead of the boule would be what the scientific name would start with.
Gotcha.
To
the
contents. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say 2 things just to kind of go over some of the stuff that you mentioned here. One, I really love the inclusion of rumors, because it's one thing, to give like a description of, this is where this monster is found, but I am, fascinated by the idea of this is beyond just kind of where these creatures are found. This is what people think this creature is, or these are kind of like the nightmares that people have about this creature, and leaving it up to the GM to determine what's true and what's not. That's a cool aspect, and I think that's going to be a big selling point for this the zine here.
Thank you. That was interesting because that was one of the last design decisions I made. Originally, it was just going to be, hey, little notes about this monster, but then I realized that these things don't have to be true, and that's when it kind of morphed into the rumors. And if I could have a word that started with T that meant rumors, I would have alliterated it, but I didn't. What really came alive to me were the traps, because what I wanted out of this zine were monsters that weren't just another hack and slash style monster. Because a lot of monsters that I've seen in bestiaries really felt like the same monster reskinned, and just another thing to dwindle hit points from. And what I wanted was an encounter that required a different solution than just let's attack it. And so this particular creature was inspired by the moose around here in Alaska. That the moose does not care about you; it will be where it wants to be. And then and so the same thing is true with these bovine with the Goroks. It's going to be there. It's curious. It's feeling out with its little tendrils, trying to find food, and is going to investigate you and possibly infect you with disease. How do you get around it? It's too big to climb over. Oh, you could climb over it, I suppose, if it lets you, but then you also have to worry about the disease you could, contract from that. And so that's where Ultra are gonna really shine for me. Now, maybe not for other people, but that's the one that I really wanted to design-wise to tackle this from.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring up the moose. A moose weighs about as much as a small car, so
yeah. And then the treasures at the very bottom. It's when I did that originally, I wanted every monster to have a treasure. Then I came to, when I was doing this one as an example, it was like, well, it's really weird that there are monsters in old school games that wind up giving you some gold. And I began wondering where did they keep this gold that you just found? How hard did I have to search to find this gold? And instead, I thought it would be more fun to reward things that you could possibly harvest from this to give you more options in the game. Like I think one of the very I think the second one on there are some hooves that are impervious to fire and heat and all that. And suddenly, players now have something they can strap on their feet and maybe walk across some lava or something. Things that let people get creative outside of the box ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, like, for anyone who approaches your game as like a fan of The Witcher and they want to start harvesting monster parts to make potions and stuff like this is really useful for players like that, because a lot of times I've run into this, certainly, where players are like, what happens if I harvest the monster's teeth, or try to take like a blood sample from them or something. I'm just like, I don't know. But this gives a good kind of layout of what you can do with these particular parts. So again, this is a great addition here.
And it gives another reason why to delve into the dungeon. If you you're going up against some massive psychic or magic user with mental powers, and you happen to know that eating a Gorok's brain could make you immune for a while, you might be willing to go in after and search for a Goroks and chance the death save to be immune to mental influence. And so you could go face up against this big bad.
Yep. And for everyone watching along at home, Max mentioned Earth Dawn, so everyone take a drink. And Scott here, Orcus Dorcas, well-deserved praise here for what you've got going on here. It's like you said, and like Scott says here, it's very clean, very easy to read. I'm happy that it's all one page, and on that one page you get everything from art to descriptions to attacks, that it all fits on this one kind of compact space. This is really good design, and I'm glad to see stuff like this in the RPG world right now, because again, like I think this is going to be very accessible and very easy to use for a lot of game masters.
Um, Speaking of that, you can't really tell because you don't have the actual page size in front of you, but the fonts are selected, and the minimum font is either 10 or 11. It's based upon what the minimum recommended size for old eyes should be. And so you shouldn't have any problem reading these even as you get up in age.
Awesome. And Devil's Theater asks a good question here. How genre or system agnostic will this particular zine be?
That's a really good question, primarily because it's pertinent here. This is designed for old school games. This is primarily fantasy. It doesn't mean that every zine is going to be. As far as system agnostic, I did approach it from a design perspective that you should be able to take it as is and use it in multiple. Yeah, sorry, I'm reading ahead on one of the comments. Maybe I should turn those off so I don't get distracted.
All good.
But so design, So system agnostic is not completely agnostic because it is for old school games, but for things like the rumors and the types of traps, and even the things you get as treasures. I'm trying to primarily allow the treasures to be narrative in scope. And what I mean by that is kind of like one of the things I can limit system-wise almost, and now it seems like a lot of spells they have a system mechanic tied to it, as opposed to, hey, you can just fly or you can walk on water and let that be it. And so the same is true with some of the treasures that I include there. For instance, the brain. It makes you immune to it doesn't say gives you a mental or anything like that. And so that's kind of what I've chosen from a design perspective. System agnostic.
Yeah, and that's a good way to go about it, because with a lot of system agnostic stuff, you get to a point where it's so system agnostic that it almost doesn't fit anywhere. So there's a certain point where you have to commit to, these are the mechanics that I'm going to use, and it'll be in some ways up to you to adapt it to the system you're using, but for the most part it'll work in kind of a broad variety of old school systems.
Yep.
Cool. So and down here again we have some more art samples, just to show people kind of more stuff that they're into. Mouth maggots, that's again just the right level of like gross to awesome. That is a great oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to give you a sense of that, more sense of the traps in things to encounter that aren't just a simple hack and slash. The mouth maggots there, they actually feed on the food that you eat, and so now not only are you hurt, but now you're also you have to deal with this issue of the constant hunger, and now maybe you don't heal a full night. Maybe it takes longer to heal, or And so having that, and then the strangle spores, they're not there to, you know, like the next one is that mushroom creature. You know, they have strangle spores, and obviously that gives the idea that you're going to be choking as a result, and trying to fight while not being able to breathe. So that's kind of the design aspect of stepping outside of, you know, I hit it with a sword, or it hits, you know, the game master just throwing more arrows or more physical attacks at them. And so that's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just awesome right there. We'll just have to pause on that, because that's just awesome. And then Devil's Theater here is asking, can you give us a hint as to some of the 40 brand new monsters you're going to make, as far as the commitments to brand new monsters that you've made? I feel like we have gotten kind of a hint of what you're working on here, but you know, how would you approach that question?
Well, so not all of the monsters have been designed out yet, but I do have my little black book of monsters that I am I do that are in various stages of completion. So my I have a spider type creature. I'm not committed to the name Nightweaver just yet, but they're creatures that seem to just stalk you. They don't ever pounce on you. They don't ever seem threatening. They just wander after you. And what they're actually doing is waiting for you to fall asleep, so they can spin webs out of your dreams and trap you in a psychic hold, and feed off of your wisdom or intelligence while you sleep. And then, of course, everybody else is going to wake up, but not you, because you're trapped in a psychic web.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do really like the approach that you're going with here. Of, it's not just things that you can hit with a sword, or it's not just, you know, hit point bags with one or two special abilities. I think that's a really good approach to take with kind of a new bestiary, because there are a lot of bestiaries out there, but anything that offers a new angle or a new challenge for people, I think, is really valuable.
Yeah, agreed. And that's obviously, I've been saying it, and but that, you know, that was my design process. I want interesting encounters, not just. I love the way you put it. You know, meat bags of hit points.
Yeah. So once again, this has. Let's go back up to the top here, just so everyone can see. This has 9 days to go. It is fully funded. And you can still get in on this for the next 9 days over on Kickstarter. So, you know, if any of this or all of this has sounded interesting, go ahead and jump on that. I will drop the link here in chat for everyone, so you guys can jump on it right now if you feel so inclined. To talk about some of the stuff that you have done in the past, and kind of, you know, beyond the Kickstarter. Like I was saying earlier, this is not your first foray into stock art. You have an extensive library, both on your website and on your Patreon, that a lot of people have taken great advantage of. So how did you first start like deciding to build out this stock art library for people to use?
Well, it goes back to about a decade ago, when Patreon kind of first came on the scene. Initially, when I came into wanting to be able to give back to the industry, give back to the community, for the hobby that I love. And when I came up, and primarily what I was doing at the time was trying to keep my rates low enough that I could survive, also that others could afford it. And But when Patreon came along, that seemed like a good way to have a symbiotic relationship. And I wanted to bridge the gap between straight commissions and stock art. And so I launched that, and I was the one to launch RPG stock art on Patreon, and kind of paved the way, and kind of took the hit for the roller coaster that it was, of trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And there are people who've come on, but have done better, in the sense of, grown larger or whatnot. But that is kind of where it started. And because I also make my commission, if someone commissions me for artwork and buying all the rights, I can then turn around and allow that to be something that the community can take advantage of as well. And so that's what I've been doing for about the past 10 years. And about a year or two ago, I was kind of tired of having of stock art points, and because that's one of the things that I would do, is that the patron would gain X amount of stock art credit that they could exchange for existing stock art, in addition to the artwork I was giving them every month. And after a while, that becomes a bit of a chore to track everybody's individual points, and then some individual links to artwork, or try to manage a Dropbox of everybody's folders and the file sizes and all that and so forth. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make my own website. And I took about a month to begin crafting it together, and now and it's even kind of grown in better, and I'm in the process of a second update to it. But now all that someone has to do, if they're a patron, once I release the artwork and send everybody their credit, it's in the form of a coupon. And so you would just go to your cart, then go to checkout, click on your coupon, and it would apply the amount of your coupon to it. And then you just download you check out and you download your artwork. Because I really didn't like the idea of someone having to wait for me to send them stuff, and because then it's my availability. And so I just constantly try to improve my relationship with the community, and by providing some just at least one step better than it was before.
Mm. Yep. And one thing that's really valuable about the work that you're doing here is, a lot of times I've spoken with creators who have been trying to find art that fits within specific genres that they're working in, and they find a lot of times stock art that's available leans very heavily towards fantasy. And so, if you're working in sci-fi or cyberpunk or westerns, I think westerns in particular is really difficult for a lot of people. There's not much available out there, but you have worked in a lot of genres here that I'm seeing. I mean, there's just like right off the bat, there's superheroes, there's stuff that could easily fit in fantasy, there's sci-fi stuff. You've got some like weapons here Victor Gorchev, if you're watching, I think James might be your guy as far as any additional like weapon stock art you need for modern necessities. But yeah, you offer a wide variety of genres for people to pick from, and that's almost as valuable just as the art being available itself. There's options as well.
Yeah, and I will say that my site, you're better able to navigate it than the other site. Simply, but you can click on a genre in the column to the left. If you go back up, and you can filter out everything but everything but your sci-fi illustrations, and you can further filter out everything but your inked illustrations. And then if you want things without backgrounds, you can just search for just without backgrounds. And so there's a certain experience that I want for independent publishers. I've been in the art director seat before, and I know how frustrating it is trying to just find something. And I have petitioned, some of that changed, and then I decided, well, I'm just going to do the change myself and with my own site. And so it's my site's certainly not perfect, but it's very easy to begin finding things on there, more so than having to wade through illustration after illustration until you can find something that might work.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I mean, just the ability to go, fantasy, grayscale with background, and then you have all of these different options that show up immediately. This is very valuable, and I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot of use out of that. I mean, like, immediately, I'm working on a game that this would fit very well in, so that's something that stands out to me. This particular piece right here, Sword Duel and Tavern.
Yeah, now I will caveat that grayscale was something I used to do. I don't do as much, and I really haven't. I should have pulled people to. There's nothing to keep anybody from taking a color illustration and dropping it to grayscale. I certainly my license to use my stock art is very, very loose. I have certain terms that I want you to stay within, but they're very loose. You can color it if you want. You can reduce it down to grayscale. You can flip it. You can crop it. I'm not super particular. Just make something and have fun in creating.
And once again, I'm just going to bring this up here. Once again, Victor Gorchev. Paging Victor Gorchev, the Scrying Dutchman. This has you written all over it. Go to Jay's site. I keep mentioning him. Victor's going to be on in a couple weeks, but he's working on a book called Modern Necessities right now, which is modern setting rules for old school essentials. So it'll involve
nice,
like bringing modern firearms and that kind of stuff into OSE. So I know he's hard at work on that right now. He's probably still looking for art and stuff like that. So that's why I'm leaning so heavily on calling his stuff out right now, because I know that he is actively working on a project where he could utilize something like that.
Nice. I know that there's also there's an ogre. Oh no, you modern fantasy, just modern. Is that right? Or is it modern fantasy?
So I just did fantasy inked and it came up.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No, I meant as far as his project.
Oh yeah, it is.
Is it modern fantasy or just straight modern?
He's incorporating like fantasy elements as well. So there's still magic and elves and dwarves and orcs and stuff like that. So there's definitely fantasy elements in his book.
Yeah, I will say, because I noticed I see yours as a smaller screen on my screen, but there's some design aspect in the way that I do the filter. It's an and thing, and logic. So if you have modern clicked and sci-fi clicked, they'll only show those that are both of those, as opposed to showing you everything that is modern and everything that is. So just letting you know, anybody that interacts with it, that is how that works.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, again, I've seen tons of people, use your work. As Scott mentioned here, one of the people who uses your work most often is Levi Combs, one of the greatest guys in role playing right now. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Levi's amazing. Um, but yeah, I mean, eh, all these resources you have available for people. I do appreciate this as someone who is starting out in game design. I've been on your site a couple times, even before we were talking about doing this episode, just looking for pieces that I thought might fit within the world that I'm trying to create. So this is really a great resource for a lot of people to use.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that the compliment, because that's exactly what it was meant to do. I really don't make a whole lot of money on from my website. Part of that's my fault. I don't really advertise the site itself. There's probably more I could do with Google Analytics and getting the word out about the site itself. But this was primarily built for my patrons to use. It was I wanted it to be something that they could get what they wanted without having to worry about my schedule and wait. Because if I push out and I'm busy, then I'm holding them up. So I'm glad to hear that from an outside perspective of the usability of the site.
Mhm. And Devil's Theater has a question here. Getting back into some of the Kickstarter stuff, have you thought about allowing your previous Kickstarter campaigns or your previous stock artwork from your website as add-ons for your Kickstarter campaign?
No, I have not. And hopefully that's pretty easy and straightforward. I never really considered, um, you know, most of my projects have just been stock art, and haven't really dabbled into add-ons. To me, it's kind of a more of a new thing. I know it's been out there for a while, but I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's certainly something I can now consider adding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, Now, something I wanted to bring up, um, just because I've had the privilege of playing in one of your convention games before. Um, you you introduced me to this idea at convention games that I'd never seen before, which was before the game started. And this was a Star Wars D6 game for anyone who's wondering. You passed out these little slips of paper, or you passed out a bag that was full of slips of paper and had people pull out of them. And it was basically, this is your relationship to the person on your left or the person on your right. You pick three from the bag and then decide which one you want to go with. Uh, just as like setting up a connection with the group that you're there with at a convention, rather than everyone just kind of being awkward. You already established connections between the characters. That was brilliant. I just want to, you know, throw some accolades at you for that, because that was really a cool thing that we did during that game.
Well, thank you. I really, I that's fun for me too, as not everybody shares the secrets between them. And so it's been, when I first did that, it was just so hilarious. Some of the things that began developing between people, knowing their particular. So I do two things. I do one that establishes the relationship, and then one that I call shoot yourself in the foot. You pick something that is a detriment to you, and then some of the combinations began being pretty hilarious to me. Not in the sense of like, none of this is, you saw it. None of this was gag stuff. None of this was,
Right.
oh, suddenly, you were born a fish or something stupid like that. I mean, maybe that's not necessarily stupid to some people, but not something gonzo out there like that.
Mhm.
And so I think that gives the one, it begins everybody, and not just a hey, you all know each other, but actually begins to develop a relationship between players. Um, and I think that's super important, even just at a convention, because too often people will sit down and game together at a convention, and they'll enjoy their time together, but not even know each other's name. And they'll go off, and it takes several conventions before those relationships begin to really form. And so I want to encourage that, but also it gives fuel to the game master as those things happen. And in fact, I'm taking that concept, and it's one of my back projects. I'm going to turn it into a deck of cards that makes it easy for people to use instead of just a bag, and just have people draw cards and go through that process together.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's really going to be useful for a lot of people, because I know there's a game called Fiasco out there that um, a lot of people have ported over to RPGs to do the same thing, but to have like a dedicated product out there, especially if you throw some of your art on those cards, I think that'll be something that a lot of people appreciate.
Yeah. It is a back burner one. So I got a zine to get out, and I got an RPG that I don't know if the cards will be out before my RPG. I really would love to get that going. But yeah, it just letting you know it's in development.
Awesome. And if we can get just one backer out of doing a show like this for, a project like this, I appreciate it. So there you go, Devil's Theater. um I'm glad that we were able to sell you on James's work here, because it really is good. So you know
Yes.
I'm sure James
Thank you, Devil's
appreciates that.
Theater. Yes, I do.
Cool. Well, we are starting to run up against our time, and there's one more topic that I'm really curious about, um, that I just wanted to ask about real quick before we have to, duck out for the evening. Um, you are the first person I've had on the show who lives in Alaska. So I just have to ask, what is gaming culture like in your particular part of Alaska?
I haven't been here too terribly long. I mean, I guess I'm coming up on 3 years now, so I guess that isn't so much of an excuse. But a year and a half of that was in Anchorage, and anybody that's moved, it takes about 3 years to really begin connecting into a community and really feeling like you've moved in. And so I did some gaming. In Anchorage, but not much outside of running some games for my kids and their friends. And then last summer, I was able to buy a home, our very first one, and so we are now trying to connect into the community here. And one of the problems that I see with Alaska is that winters really kind of drain you, in the sense of no one wants to get out, no one wants to brave the weather, in the sense of hey, it's warm in here. Do I really want to shovel more snow just to get out and go do something? But maybe I'm wrong. And we are now hitting into spring. So this is my first winter in this area, because we're about an hour away from Anchorage, and we do have two gaming stores within driving distance, which I know is better than some. So I'm not going to complain at all. But it does seem to be very 5e centric, but I guess that's kind of in a lot of places. And so I have attempted to start a game night. but that one kind of fizzled. But I'm going to go back at it again. I've begun. There's a program here, and it is designed. It's aimed at youth, to give them a connection before they get connected into drugs and habits. I've been twice now, and I'm toying with the idea direction that I think that well, I shouldn't say I know I'm going to move forward with my kids and getting back in. I say kids, my youngest is 12, so please please understand that this isn't just kids. This is teens, and especially the when we really got hooked into our hobby, middle school and high school. Now, some people are fortunate enough to get hooked earlier. That's my extent and my exposure to the hobby here. And I'm hoping to find more of it.
Yep, absolutely. And I support any kind of program that helps, one, kids find this hobby, and two, help kids find this hobby over finding something else. Because if you pick up a serious role-playing habit, by the time you buy your books, buy your dice, and buy all the minis that you could possibly own, you don't have any money left over for drugs. So there's that.
Yeah.
And then there is one final question that everyone gets asked when they come on Rollin' Bones. I will tell you the answer to this question can be as philosophical or as sophomoric as you want it to be. But James, if you could put anything on a t-shirt, what would that be?
Okay. I'm gonna chance. Let me see. I don't know if I can pull this off or not, but let's see. So it's not if I could; it's that I did.
Mm-hmm.
If I could put something on a t-shirt, it's gonna be something that's going to be meaningful. That's going to last. Our interactions with people are among the most important things. And obviously, I am more philosophical. So at the end of our life, it's not going to be that we wish we could have worked more hours, made more money. Maybe not. Probably not even say I wish I pushed out one more RPG project. Maybe it was your bucket list, but that might be something different. But ultimately, it's I want to. I would want to do something that's going back to the next generation.
Absolutely. And so one more time for everyone, just once again, the project is Monster and Character Encounters, aka MACE. This is the first issue, hopefully, of many. And I will once again drop the link here in chat for everyone who did not back at the beginning. Help out James with the algorithm. Let's push this thing through the roof. It's already funded, but come on, we can fund it more. We can do more. Come on, guys. Let's jump on this. So that's going to do it for Rollin' Bones this evening. James, thank you for coming on. Thank you for braving the slings and arrows of the internet and all of its various gremlins that cause technical issues. This is a great conversation. I'm very glad that we were able to do this evening.
Yeah, thank you for having me on and for emptying Devil's Theater's pockets. For connecting just one more person.
All right, guys. Well, next week.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you as well. But next week, I will be joined once again for his third appearance on Rollin' Bones. I will be joined by Alex Macrease. We will be talking all about simulationism, what that means, how it affects RPGs, and how it, in our opinion, makes things better. So, we'll be talking to Alex McCrease next week all about simulationism. I hope you guys will join us then. Remember, once again, if you liked this, if you want your friends, your loved ones, your mailman, your game master, your players to see Roll Bones, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to back James's Kickstarter here. You can follow him on Twitter at JShields. And one more time, the socials for myself at Howard_Ryan Gregg on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and Twitch. I am Rollin' Bones or Rollin' Bones Ryan. And until next time, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I will see you guys next time.